Mr. Rasmussen.
No, it's Mr. Robbins.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. No questions from the board.
Oh, all that for Your Honor, with the court's permission, we're going to call Dr. Jason Babcock to the stand.
Doctor, please be cautious to ascend, please. You stand face Madam Clerk, raise your right hand, please.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
May I have you state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, it's Jason R. Babcock, Jason Babcock.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please have a seat and be cautious on the oath. Okay, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Okay, you can give me
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Babcock, as part of the beginning of this, I'd like to go over the background. We're going to do that on the screen for the jury to view. Mark? Thank you. Dr. Babcock, did you go to college?
Yes, sir, I did.
Where did you go?
I went to Illinois Wesleyan University for my bachelor's in chemistry, and then I went to University of Chicago for my PhD and master's, and focusing on inorganic chemistry, and then I also did a postdoctoral research at Northwestern University.
What is inorganic chemistry?
It's chemistry that's focused on substances that don't contain carbon, so things like metals. Certain compounds are in our world that don't contain carbon.
Inorganic then has to do with things that are organic, have carbon in them. Those things that don't have carbon in them are inorganic. Is that a good way of saying that?
That's correct.
Okay. After you, or while you got this, did you work outside in the private industry?
Yes, when I finished my schooling, I went to work in the aerospace industry and worked for a company called Ultramet.
Ultramet, what did they do?
Ultramet is a company that is in the aerospace industry and makes components for rocket engines, things like very high temperature capable metals and ceramics, also things that are involved with rocket propulsion like hydrazine catalysts and hydrazine derivative catalysts that are made out of metals like platinum and iridium and other platinum group metals.
So you worked with hydrazine as a part of your work at Pepperman?
Yes.
And how long were you at that particular job?
I worked for Ultramet for 6 years, and then I worked for another company that was focused on materials development for alternative energy technology, as well as there was some aerospace work that we were doing.
Who do you currently work for?
I currently work for ESI, which is short for Engineering Systems Incorporated.
What do you do there?
I'm a director of our chemistry practice, so I supervise our chemistry group that has 5 consultants, including myself. I've been in this field of consulting for about 15 years, and I do all kinds of different types of projects, usually involving something having to do with chemistry or materials like plastics and polymers, like plumbing materials and things of that nature.
What were you asked to do in this case?
So I was asked to look at the circumstances around the use of this ORT meter, this meter that's used to measure the oxidation reduction potential of solutions, and understand what the real water manufacturing process was, what substances were added, how the water was altered in the process of manufacturing the water, and look into just how these ORT meters function.
And did you examine the ORT meters in this case from whether or not it actually is an ORP meter. The Milwaukee MW500 meter, is it an ORP meter?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And we also asked to look at all of the evidence in this case, including deposition testimony.
Yes, I was.
Did you look at the deposition testimony of Blaine Jones?
Yes,
Did you look at the deposition testimony of Casey Aiken?
yes, I did.
Did you look at the deposition testimony of Mr. Bush? You can recall.
I'll call Mr. Bush.
Oh,
What was his first name?
I'm trying to remember myself right now. It's been such a long day.
Michael Brown?
Mike Bush.
Mike Bush? I don't recall that one.
Okay, that's okay.
Maybe I did, but there were lots of depositions that we,
But how many depositions did you review?
probably 15 or 20, I think.
Okay. And it would be probably correct that you probably can't remember the names of each particular deponent or deposition, persons whose deposition were taken by name to be able to tell that to the jury. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct.
Okay.
I try my best, but can't always remember everything.
Okay. Dr. Najim is one of the plaintiff's experts in this case. Did you know that?
Yes,
Did you review his work?
yes, I did.
What did you discover with regards to Dr. Najim? I have some specific questions with regard to that.
Well, he had had experience in water treatment, chemistry and water treatment facilities, and he had proposed some pathways that hydrazine could have formed during the production of real water. So I looked into those, and I basically did some analysis of what he was proposing and whether that was possible given some of the properties that we know about the reactants, which are the things that would have reacted together to form the hydrazine as a product, what those properties are in solution. So I had some questions about whether his proposed pathways were possible or not. So I think I had discussed that. I also had looked into his, some of his opinions were related to whether hydrazine would degrade over time in water solutions. So I also looked into that.
With regard to that, did you also study something that we've told the jury about? It's called these titanium tubes. Have you seen those or photos of those?
I don't think I've seen them firsthand, but I have seen diagrams of them at least.
Oh, sorry, give us a second. Dr. Babcock, have you seen diagrams or something, photos or something that's similar to what I'm holding in my hands?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe are these the titanium tubes that have been discussed during the evidence part of this case?
They look like them, yeah.
Okay. You never had your hands on these particular tubes toward this case, right?
No, I have not.
Okay. What did Dr. Najim believe about where the hydrazine was created with regard to these tubes?
He proposed, I believe, two different pathways that were related to nitrogen that would have reacted inside of the tube to form hydrazine. Hydrazine does have nitrogen as its backbone. And so he had proposed one possible pathway where nitrogen would react to form hydrazine. And the issue that I had with that as a possible route to hydrazine was that nitrogen is not very soluble in water. So you can't dissolve much nitrogen in water. And the amount of nitrogen that would have had to be dissolved in the water to form the concentrations of hydrazine that were detected in the FDA testing of the real water concentrate were many, many orders of magnitude higher than what could have been produced based on the solubility or the amount of nitrogen that could dissolve in the water.
Is it true, though, that Dr. Najim's theory that the hydrogen was created during the electrolysis process of making real water, that it could have happened in that electrolysis area, or that part of the manufacturing process.
That was what his theory was based on, and you know, I didn't believe that the reaction pathways that he proposed were possible due to the limited solubility of nitrogen. But in reality, since the titanium tubes and how they function was not available to us to recreate the scenario and test ourselves, it's, you know, there could have been other pathways that hydrazine would form in those tubes that I didn't think of or wasn't aware of, but I just wasn't sure if the ones that Dr. Najim had proposed were possible due to some of the basic properties of the materials involved.
Is it possible that hydrazine was created as a part of the electrolysis process in manufacturing of this water, the real water product?
It is possible, yes.
Okay, so you didn't rule it out completely?
Correct.
Okay, so if hydrazine was created at that time, you've heard testimony from Blaine Jones that during that time he created, or they used those.
Objection leading.
Did Blaine Jones make Blaine Jones make concentrate?
Yes.
And did you review the FDA reports in this case?
Yes.
Did the FDA find that there was hydrazine in the concentrate?
Yes.
And what do you know about hydrazine and its consumption based on your experience of working with hydrazine at your job when you worked for that aerospace company after that?
Well, I know that hydrazine will degrade over time in water. It's not stable in water. There are applications for hydrazine that are used in corrosion prevention, where it is put in water intentionally, not water that people would be drinking, but more like water in a boiler closed system, so that it can react with oxygen and keep that water free of oxygen so that it can control corrosion. And the way that works is the hydrazine actually reacts with oxygen to form nitrogen and water, which are not, will not corrode the metal. And so by the same kind of reaction, if you have hydrazine in water and it's in a storage tank or a bottle, over time, as oxygen diffuses into that water solution, it'll react and destroy the hydrazine over time. So it kind of slowly over time will degrade. There's other pathways that hydrazine can also degrade in water, but that's just one example.
In this case, when the concentrate was made, was an ORP meter used?
Yes.
Who used it?
My understanding is that Blaine Jones always made the concentrate, and he would measure the ORP value when doing so.
Do you recall his testimony with regard to that?
Yeah, I recall that he would make that concentrate about 2 times a year and would measure the ORP to be, the target value is negative 550 millivolts.
Did he say anything else about, once he made that, if it was negative 550, if there was a issue with that particular number from using the Milwaukee 550? What I mean by Milwaukee 500, getting the negative 550. Do you remember him saying there was any issues with the meter?
No, he didn't. I don't recall him saying anything about that.
So twice a year he would use it and he would come up with a negative 550 number, correct?
Objection leading.
Okay.
Sustained.
Did he use the MW500 meter to take a measurement of the concentrate?
Yes.
Okay, and this is the E2 concentrate that was a part of the manufacturing process by Real Water?
Correct.
Okay. Do you remember what measurements he read at the time that this was being manufactured?
There was minus 550 millivolts for that concentrate.
Do you remember what he said about whether or not there was a variance with regard to that reading of negative 550?
I don't recall him talking about there being a variance at that point. I recall there being variance sometime when the finished product was manufactured.
Okay. So at the time that the concentrate was being made, it generally read negative 550 every time.
Objection, leading,
Speculation.
and lack foundation.
In his testimony, did he ever opine that it was generally negative 550?
Objection, leading,
Fine. I'll sustain.
Did he give any testimony with regard to what the reading was every time he used it?
objection, leading,
Did he?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's more foundation.
From what I recall, he always got negative 550 millivolt reading when he made that concentrate.
So twice a year, for how many years that Real Water has been in existence, he's always done a reading with an ORP meter of the concentrate. Is that correct?
objection, foundation,
I'll sustain that foundation.
So part of making the concentrate, did Real Water use an ORP meter?
Yes,
Did that ORP meter that was used making the concentrate provide readings?
yes,
Were those readings negative 550? Is that what you previously testified?
yes,
And did he testify that he did this twice a year?
yes,
And do you believe that those readings twice a year were consistent during the times that he was making concentrate?
objection, Your Honor, leading, lacks foundation, calls for speculation.
I'll sustain.
Do you know if anyone else, based on the testimony that you've seen, besides Blaine Jones, ever made concentrate?
not that I saw any of the testimony. He was the only one that I had read that ever made the concentrate.
Do you know if Real Water was made in every year up till today, as far as you know?
Well, I believe they ceased.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll sustain. I'll strike the response.
Do you know if Real Water made its concentrate in the year 2012? If it was making Real Water products?
I believe so,
How about 2013,
yes,
2014,
yes,
2015,
yes,
2016,
yes,
2017,
yes,
2018,
yes,
2019,
yes,
to 2020?
yes,
The plaintiffs in this case were injured in some of those years. Are you aware of that?
yes,
This hydrazine, when it's consumed by someone, caused them to be injured.
It is a liver toxin, so it is something that should not be consumed.
And when you worked at the aerospace company that you worked at, were there safety protocols put in so that people would not consume hydrazine?
Absolutely,
And did you work with hydrazine at that company?
yes.
Getting back to this, was there any evidence that up until the time that these people consumed this Real Water products, was there anywhere that you saw in the evidence that Blaine Jones did not use an ORP meter and in measuring the ORP of the concentrate?
That he did not?
That he did. Is there anything that says, I used something else, I didn't take an ORP meter, or was it consistent that he did that every year, as I just laid out?
As I read, he was always using the ORP meter to take a measurement.
Did he ever testify that he got a different reading than negative 550?
No, not that I saw.
Okay. You indicated that Dr. Najim talked about hydrazine degrades. Is that correct? Does hydrazine degrade?
Yes.
What does degrade mean to you?
Basically, it undergoes some type of reaction that turns it into something else.
Okay. What is hydrazine chemically? What I mean that is on the atomic level. If I were to say what it is, what is it?
It's a liquid that is made up of 2 nitrogens and 2 hydrogens. So you have 2 nitrogens that are bonded together, and then each nitrogen has 2 hydrogens coming off of it.
Okay, so if I had those 2 nitrogens like this, 2 hydrogen atoms off of it, it's actually 4 hydrogens, just 2 for each nitrogen atom. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yes.
Why is it unstable?
Well, certain things are unstable, and that's part of the reason why it's used as a rocket propellant, is that you want something that can be broken apart easily. And in the case of rocket fuel, it's stored as a liquid and comes in contact with catalysts, which was one of the things that I was developing, was a catalyst that would decompose the hydrazine to form, in that case, nitrogen and hydrogen gas, which is what would propel things like satellites in, once they're in the Earth's orbit, to move them around so they're in the right place to pick up signals or transmit signals back to Earth. And so hydrazine is a relatively unstable molecule because the products like nitrogen and hydrogen are very stable. And so it, thermodynamically, the molecule is happier, if you will, when it's hydrogen and nitrogen rather than hydrazine. And so that's why it's generally not a very stable substance that's only man-made. It's not found in nature because it's basically not that stable.
Dr. DeJean testified that it was unstable. Did you ever see his testimony?
I did see some of his testimony in this trial earlier.
Okay.
Earlier in the trial, yes.
Thank you. And there's been testimony that Blaine Jones made the concentrate twice a year, correct?
Yes.
Okay. If hydrazine is unstable, doctor, hypothetically speaking, if on the day that it's made, the concentrate's made, it's negative 550, is the next day, is it just a little bit less under an ORP reading? Excuse me.
Objection unintelligible.
Okay, you did it right.
No, you can rephrase.
Thank you. If the concentrate reads negative 550 on a particular day, do we have that, demonstrative evidence? It's like a calendar. Mark, you know what I'm talking about? You have objection to this?
No, but we can.
I'll explain it.
We'll give you a wicked witch if you want to.
That's what I've got most days. You see this up here on the screen, you can probably see it back there.
Yes.
Okay. I have all the different months of the year, January, February, March, April, May, okay? Let's assume for a second, hypothetically, that Mr. Blaine Jones, doctor, makes the concentrate in January of any particular year. We can pick one. You want to pick 2017, is that okay?
Sure.
And then after 6 months, he would do the process again. He would make the concentrate, correct?
Yes.
So in January of 2017, he makes the concentrate. And what was generally the reading he would get of that concentrate at that time?
Minus.
Reading.
Overall.
Minus 550 millivolts.
Okay. In February of 2017, with that concentrate that's now stored in the concentrate bottle, it looks like this right here, would it still be negative 550 in your opinion, doctor?
It would most likely be lower because of the hydrazine degrading.
Would it be lower in March from February?
Most likely.
And would it be lower in April?
Yep.
Be lower and so on and so forth, correct?
Most likely, yes.
Right. You recall the concentrate was then mixed with in the mixing tank to create the real water product, correct?
Yes.
At that time, did you see any readings of negative 550 of the real water product?
No.
Okay. Was there a parameter created by real water for what they wanted the ORP reading to be?
They were targeting for the finished product to be negative 225 to negative 300 millivolts.
Okay. So it started at negative 550, and then it went down to a parameter that they wanted, correct?
Yes.
Only talking about the water This is the filtered water that's in that tank. Would that also have an effect on the ORP reading at that time?
Well, the filtered water was positive ORP, and so mixing that with the concentrate that was negative 550, they would target to get the mixing of those two correct so that they could be within the desired range for the finished product.
Is hydrazine in a negative reading chemical? Do you understand what I'm saying, or do I need to rephrase?
No, I understand what you're saying.
Right.
So you're asking if hydrazine is reducing chemical,
Right.
which has a negative ORP, and it is, yes, it has a negative ORP.
So when the hydrazine somehow got into this concentrate, it is itself affecting the ORP reading, correct?
Most likely, yes.
And then as it reduces, that ORP reading would go less negative, towards zero from negative, correct?
As the hydrazine decomposes, yeah, the reading would go less negative.
And Dr. Najim said hydrazine degrades and that it would be less negative every day. And so this is true that this would alter that reading of the ORP meter, correct?
Correct.
Is degradation of a chemical in this situation based a lot on just time? In other words, it takes time in order for something to degrade, correct?
Yes.
Okay, there's also other elements about how it degrades, and that is what it's subject to. In other words,
You're already leading at this point.
all right,
I'll sustain.
what other elements besides time, what other factors besides time would affect the negative ORP readings of a concentrate?
Well, as time goes on, not only does the hydrazine degrade as it's turning into other stuff and reacting to form other substances, but also things like carbon dioxide will be absorbed out of the air, and that'll affect the pH of the solution. And that has an effect on ORP as well. So it can be affected not only by the hydrazine degrading, but also by things dissolving into the solution over time and changing the ORP. Temperature will also have an effect on how degradation or how much degradation occurs. Most chemical reactions happen faster at higher temperatures. So the temperature that the material is being stored is as a factor. And then also things like hydrazine that are volatile liquids, they can, besides just degrading and undergoing these chemical reactions, they can just evaporate out of the solution and be lost to the atmosphere, just evaporating into a gas. So all those things can happen over time.
Doctor, in your opinion, could all of these factors in this situation cause the reading of the ORP meter, which started at negative 550 with a concentrate, by the time it's mixed with the filtered water, cause it to go below the parameters set by real water?
Objection, Your Honor. Lacks foundation, calls for speculation.
I'll sustain as far as both, I guess, both issues.
Okay.
You rephrase, sir.
You have a parameter that was set by real water, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You have various factors, including time and other elements, like carbon dioxide you talked to, that will bring that number down, correct? Bring down the ORP reading.
Correct.
Okay. In your opinion, And will that always bring what was negative 550 down to some other range, or some other number?
Your Honor, objection, it still calls for speculation. There's no foundation about any of these factors or what the conditions were, or it's vague as to time.
I'll sustain, I mean, in general, we know it degrades, but we don't know at what rate and so on.
Do you know the rates of degradation for hydrazine, based on your experience of working where you did?
No, it's not really something that I've studied before exactly.
Can you tell the jury how much of the rate is to have this go down?
I can't estimate that. I'd have to do testing really to see how quickly it degrades, and it's really dependent a lot on the conditions of how it's stored or what other substances are present in the water.
And at Real Water, you weren't there when it was being manufactured, correct?
Correct.
So all you can tell us is that it was degrading, but you can't tell us the rate because there are too many factors out there to tell us how quickly it degraded. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. Is it possible that it could degrade quite a ways?
No, it's also speculation.
I'll sustain.
Thank you.
There's been testimony that another chemical was used by Real Water, potassium hydroxide. Do you know what that is?
Yes.
Is it also a element that will do things like bring things negative, create negative ORP, or
Yes.
reduce water?
Yes.
Okay. Does hydrazine affect pH?
Not really. It's a weak base. It is a base, acid base, so that's what pH is measuring. So hydrazine is a weak base, but because it's weak, it doesn't change the pH very much.
Do you know whether or not Real Water was doing pH testing?
Yes, they were.
Okay. Dr. Babcock, as a chemist, and you've been the only chemist, but certainly we've had doctors of medicine that have been on who have degrees in chemistry, but you're a chemist, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Chemically speaking, is there a difference between pH and ORP?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what that is?
Absolutely. So pH is related, as I mentioned, to acids and bases, and it's really just a measure of the concentration of hydrogen ions. And so it's as you have more hydrogen ions, the pH is lower, and as you have less hydrogen ions, the pH is higher. So it's at neutral pH, like water, like normal water is neutral pH. There's about equal amounts of acid and base species in solution. And then as the pH is lower, there's more acid. So that's something completely different from ORP, which is oxidation reduction potential, which is really just measuring the ability of anything that's in that solution to either accept or donate electrons. So they're really completely unrelated properties of water.
But hydrazine is not detectable really when you're doing pH testing, correct?
No, it probably wouldn't. It would not have an effect on the pH measurement. The way, like something like potassium hydroxide is a strong base, so when that's added to a solution, it affects the pH.
Real Water wanted an alkaline water. Does pH measure alkalinity of a solution?
Not really. Alkalinity is more of a measure of how much acid the solution can neutralize. So I think Real Water was after getting an alkaline water, not necessarily a water with alkalinity, although those sound the same. They're actually technically different and are confused by a lot of people. You're not alone.
Thanks.
But alkaline water is basically the opposite of acidic water. So it's water that has base in it.
And can you measure that with a pH test?
Yes.
Okay. Can you measure that with an ORP meter?
The alkalinity or the alkaline, how alkaline they
Yeah.
I mixed it up. How alkaline a water sample is, you cannot measure that with an ORP meter. But you can measure it with a pH meter.
So that the jury isn't confused then, and it's confusing, the ORP meter only determines whether or not a solution can accept or donate, what exactly did you say?
Electrons.
Electrons, right?
Don't worry, there won't be a test.
Okay. But hydrazine would not be is not detectable, and I know I'm repeating myself, is not detected typically with a pH test, correct?
Yeah, hydrazine would not have an effect on the pH of solution.
So an ORP meter doesn't detect hydrazine, correct?
No, it doesn't specifically detect hydrazine. It might, notice there might be a difference that's observed in the ORP if hydrazine is present or not, but it's not specifically detecting anything. It's just telling you how much electrons can be donated or accepted by that solution.
And that's done by electrical current, correct?
Yes.
And so it really tells us a reading of millivolts, correct?
Yes.
And a pH test isn't going to be able to tell us if hydrazine is in a solution either.
No.
In your research, you talked about several different machines, or I should say it this way, scientific instruments that detect chemicals in a solution. Could you please explain to the jury what some of those would be?
Sure. So there are instruments that we use when we want to detect things like hydrazine or other components of that are other compounds that may be in water that we don't want to be there. And they're fairly sophisticated instruments. One is called a GCMS, which stands for gas chromatography with mass spectrometry. And that basically is an instrument that you can inject a sample of water and it will separate out the water from things that are in the water. Like if you had hydrazine in it, if you had like acetone, which is like a nail polish remover that people shouldn't drink as well, and identify what they are. So there's the chromatography part separates them out, and then the mass spectrometer is what tells you that this is hydrazine, or this is acetone, or this is ethanol. And so that's one. There's also one that's similar, but it's based on liquids instead of gases, and that's called a LCMS, which is liquid chromatography with mass spectrometry. And that's what's typically used to identify any of these types of solvent-type substances like hydrazine or acetone, whether they're present in water and what the concentration is.
Is there any other scientific instruments that does this?
Those are the most commonly used ones. There are other ways that those compounds that can be detected using different instruments, but those are the most versatile ones because they can be used for anything that's volatile, like a solvent, like hydrazine.
Have you seen any evidence in this case that any of these types of equipment was used by real water?
No.
Having said that, are you aware that real water sent water samples out to various laboratories to get third-party testing of their water products?
I believe they did, yeah.
Do you know if they did any testing for hydrazine?
I didn't see any of that testing that would have been looking for that necessarily.
Is testing for hydrazine common?
It's not too common for water testing because it's not something that's encountered in, it's not like it's found in nature where it could be in municipal water that's coming from an aquifer or a lake or reservoir. So it's not, if you look up municipal water data testing that you could get for where you get your water at your house, they won't say hydrazine not detected because it's not something that's normally found in water. But some of these methods that are used to test things like a bottled water product to see if they're safe are not looking specifically for only certain compounds. They would identify and detect anything that's there, in theory.
Doctor, is it true that based on degradation of hydrazine, that the amount of time spent between, in this case, the concentrate is made and how much time goes past until the concentrate is actually mixed in the product will have then an effect on hydrazine, or how much hydrazine remains in the real water products?
Yes, it would have an effect.
So a short amount of time, say a month, more hydrazine, a longer amount of time, less hydrazine. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me what vinegar is?
Vinegar is a solution of acetic acid. And acetic acid is an organic acid. I don't know if you've heard of things like hydrochloric acid or muriatic acid. They're the same thing, just a different name that people put in swimming pools. But vinegar is acetic acid, so it's there's no minerals in it. It's just like hydrochloric acid is referred to as a mineral acid, but acetic acid is an organic acid, so it's a little bit different.
And in your research and based on the evidence that we have in this, let me just rephrase that, based on the evidence that you've seen in this case, do you know whether or not distilled white vinegar was found at Real Water's facility?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Will vinegar oxidize?
Your Honor, I'm sorry to interrupt, we could approach.
All right.
All right. And counsel, thank you.
So getting back to the question that I started. Does vinegar oxidize noble metals?
Yes, vinegar can oxidize all metals. It's being an organic acid. It has that capability of oxidizing metals.
And a noble metal would be found like on a periodic table of elements. One of those could be like gold,
Yes,
silver,
yes,
platinum.
yes.
That's the next question. Will vinegar oxidize platinum?
Yes,
We'll go back to the ORP meter. You use an ORP meter as a part of your work in the companies that you've worked for. Is that correct? And I mean, the companies, not ESI. The companies like the aerospace company, correct?
I don't think I used an ORP meter there. We weren't doing much water chemistry at that
Okay.
company, but I've used them in various capacities over the years as a chemist, yes.
Okay. Did you ever use them in private practice, for instance?
I don't think I have. It's mostly been in, since we do a lot of water chemistry related projects, like things that, looking at corrosion or water that's affecting plastic pipes, like PVC pipes. We often measure the ORP of those solutions because the more positive an ORP is, the more corrosive it would be towards metals, or the more it would oxidize things like PVC and cause them to fail prematurely. So mostly that's where I've used ORP meters in the past.
Does vinegar oxidize, oh, strike that. I asked that question, if I remember. On an ORP probe, is there a part that is made out of platinum?
Yes.
What is that part called?
It's the working electrode, the electrode that is on the tip of the probe, that is what is actually measuring the ORP in the test solution.
Okay, so the jury knows this, Ms. Torre, would you mind handing box?
What do you need?
The Milwaukee 500 box. think they know what this is, but I'm just gonna make sure I've made a record. Dr. Babcock, is this an ORP probe?
Yes,
And inside of this probe, there is a section that's called the electrode, correct?
yes,
And at the end of that, there's a little tip, correct?
yes,
And is that tip made out of platinum?
yes,
And is that true for the Milwaukee MW 500 meter?
yes,
Does vinegar oxidize platinum?
yes,
And does that include the platinum that would be a part of this ORP probe?
yes, it does.
All the questions I have.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any cross?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry.
Good afternoon, Dr. Babcock.
How you doing, Mr. President?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will try to be quick as possible here. Dr. Babcock, you mentioned that you had used ORP meters on several occasions in your work.
Yes,
Estimate about 20 times or so,
20, 30, somewhere in there, I think.
20 to 30. Have you ever used an MW500?
Just in this matter,
Prior to this case, in any of your work, have you ever used an MW500 here?
no.
So you
No,
used,
we had a different, I'm sorry, we had a different model in our lab.
you used a different brand ORP meter.
Yes,
Have you ever used an ORP meter to take a negative ORP reading?
just in testing that was part of this matter.
You don't have any, well, you're a chemist, you don't have any specialized or expertise or experience with ORP meters, is that fair?
Well, I'd use them like many tools that chemists use, pH meters, ORP meters. I've used them for many years in the work that I've done.
For positive ORP readings, correct?
Yeah, except for in this matter.
You've never designed or developed an ORP meter, correct?
No, I have not.
Never conducted any research studies on ORP meters, correct?
No,
Never published any papers on ORP meters, is that right?
no,
Prior to this case, you never consulted on any projects about ORP meters, true?
not about them. I've used them as part of a bigger series of tests that I would be conducting in water, but not focused on the ORP meter, using it as a tool.
You have no training or experience with respect to making alkaline bottled water, correct?
That's correct.
In sum, prior to this case, you had no experience making alkaline water, no experience using the NW500 ORP meter, and no experience taking negative ORP readings, correct?
Yeah, I believe all of the times I've measured ORP in the past, it's been positive. You know, typically just municipal water, which is positive.
You were asked several questions about hydrazine degradation. You recall that?
Yes,
And about what the ORP was when the concentrate was made.
yes,
And it's your belief that the concentrate is made twice a year. Is that right?
yes,
That's your understanding of when they're taking these ORP readings in the concentrate making process is twice a year, right?
Yes.
Are you sure it's the concentrate making or the negative water that's twice a year?
I thought it was the concentrate that was made twice a year.
Could be the negative water.
My recollection is that it was the concentrate.
The FDA found high levels of hydrazine in every sample of the E2 concentrate that was tested, correct?
Well, they detected, a concentration of hydrazine. I wouldn't typically call it high or low without some context. I know what the numbers are. I usually would use numbers. I don't know if it's high or not.
Would you consider the concentration found by the FDA in the samples of concentrate tested as high?
Well, I know what the numbers are. That's what I would talk, relative to water that's typically tested for consumption that has no hydrazine, it was higher than that.
And you don't dispute the FDA's testing or conclusions, do you?
No.
You agree that they're valid?
Yes.
Now, you were asked a lot of questions about the timing of the hydrazine degradation, when it's between the time the concentrate's made and it's added to the finished product to make the product that's consumed by people. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Ultimately, in terms of timing, we have the timing of the FDA testing that establishes how much hydrazine was in the concentrate at that time, correct?
Yes.
And the FDA tested the concentrate several months after the concentrate was made, correct?
Yes.
And you reviewed the Eurofins testing on the retail water bottles, correct?
Yes, I did.
And then Eurofins found hydrazine in the retail water bottles made from the E2 concentrate, correct?
I think they found it in 5 of the 7 bottles that were tested. That's what I recall.
It was in 5 of the 7 bottles above the reporting limit, correct?
Yes.
And in the other 2 samples, there was evidence of hydrazine, just not at the reporting limits.
Correct.
The Eurofins testing was done more than 2 years after the samples were made. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
So we have the time of production when the hydrazine formed, right?
We can make that assumption. It's if we're assuming that it's formed in the Russian tubes, then yes, it would be produced then.
Well, you said you questioned whether the 2 pathways proposed by Dr. Najm were plausible, right?
Correct.
You don't have your own independent theory of how the hydrazine was formed, do you?
No. I have some ideas of how it could have formed, but of course we couldn't do any testing of the process to see if we could identify where it came into the product.
Well, we know it was found in every sample of the E2 concentrate, right?
Yes.
So it had to have been before the E2 concentrate, right?
Yes.
So that electrolysis process is used to make the E2 concentrate, correct?
Yes.
So you wouldn't dispute that the most likely explanation is that it was made in that process in making the concentrate, correct?
I guess I don't know if I would say most likely. It's a possible, route for how the hydrazine could have got in. It could have been an impurity in something that was added at the same time, like the potassium hydroxide, or it could have been in the bottle.
Let me stop you there. You haven't looked at any of that or come up, you have no opinions on that, right?
Well, yeah, I don't know because we haven't done any testing of all those different things to try and rule in or rule out hypotheses.
All you can say is that you need to do testing to confirm whether you agree with Dr. Najm, right?
That would be preferred, yes.
So we know that assuming that the hydrazines formed in the electrolysis process to be found in the E2 concentrate, we have the hydrazine concentration at the time of production, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then we know the FDA testing several months after the E2 concentrate was made. So we have the hydrazine concentrate several months later at the time of the FDA testing, right?
Yes.
And based on hydrazine degradation, which I think you and Dr. Najim are in agreement on, the amount detected by the FDA in the concentrate many months after it was first produced would most likely be less than the amount that would have been in there at the time of production. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have the urethane testing, which was done even 2 years later.
Right.
And we have the hydrazine concentration levels in that testing, right?
Yes.
And you would agree, based on hydrazine degradation, that's going to be much less than 2 years earlier at the time of the FDA testing, right?
Yes, it actually proves that the hydrazine is degrading because it is much less in the bottles that were tested at Eurofins than what was tested in the concentrate, or what was found in the concentrate in the FDA testing.
And it's going to be even less than that than the concentrations that you'd expect at the initial time of production, right?
I'm sorry, could you rephrase that?
So hydrazine degrades from the time of the concentration testing to the time of the urethane testing, and it's going to degrade even more if you go back to the time of production, right?
Well, it was produced before, quite some time before the Eurofins testing, so I would expect the hydrazine concentration was higher at the time of production than by the time it was tested by Eurofins, right?
Right, but we have two different production times, right? We have the production of the concentrate,
Yes.
where the FDA found all the hydrazine, right?
Yes.
Then we have the testing of the concentrate, right?
Correct.
Then they use the concentrate to make the water product that was tested by Eurofins, right?
Yes.
Then we have the testing of the retail bottles by Eurofins, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So it's really 3 different time frames: time of production of the concentrate, time of testing of the concentrate, and then time of testing of the retail bottles that the concentrate was used to make.
Yes.
And I know this is confusing. That's why we had this wonderful slide, Shane, if you can. Mr. Kemp forced me to get this in on the list. But this is basically exemplifies what we're talking about here. We have full hydrazine at the unknown time of production. We have partial degradation in the concentrate. And then the concentrate's used to make the water, and then we have near complete degradation more than 2 years later in the urethane testing.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So you were asked a little bit about the real water manufacturing procedures, correct?
Yes.
The jury's heard a lot about this process, so I don't want to go into it too much. But essentially, to make the final product, the E2 concentrate was added to 300 gallons of purified water, correct?
I thought it was 500 gallons.
Well,
some dilution, yeah.
some dilution. They made, I think, different amounts at different times. But
Sure.
I believe in your report you noted it was 300 gallons. But whatever it is, they add the E2 concentrate to purified water to make the finished product, correct?
Yes.
And Real Water used the MW500 ORT meter as part of this process at various stages, correct?
Yes.
So in making the finished product, first Real Water would check the ORP of the filtered water before adding the concentrate, right?
Correct.
And the filtered water was supposed to have an ORP of positive 200 to positive 400, correct?
That's my recollection, yes.
Then the concentrate is added to this positive 200 to positive 400 water until that water's changed all the way down to a negative ORP between negative 225 and negative 300, right?
Yes.
Now, in order to change positive filtered water to the negative finished water, you have to do something to the water, right?
Yes,
It's not Glinda the Good Witch waving a magic wand, correct?
that's correct.
It's, in this case, real water is doing something to change the electrochemical characteristics of the water from positive 2 to 400 to negative 225 to 300, right?
Yes,
And real water was using the chemical additives and electrolysis to change the water, correct?
correct.
Real water used ORP as the primary determining factor for how much of this concentrate to add, correct?
I believe so.
And real water used the MW500 to measure this negative ORP of the water, right?
Correct.
It would use the meter to measure the filtered water to confirm it had the positive ORP, and then it would add the E2 concentrate, correct?
Objection? Lacks foundation.
I don't believe that the MW500 was used to measure the ORP of the positive. Oh, I'm sorry, should I?
No, that's fine. I was,
I withdraw his second question. Looks like you got the answer going.
Sorry, I forgot to wait, Your Honor.
that's okay.
I thought there was a meter of some sort that was on the filtration equipment that measured the ORP of the filtered water.
Okay, so either way, I don't think it matters. I think it's a difference without a distinction, but they're establishing somehow with some measurement that this is a positive 200 to 400 filtered water, right?
Yes,
That's the standard operating procedure to make sure this water is positive 200 to 400 before adding the E2 concentrate, correct?
correct.
Once it's established it's positive 200 and between positive 200 and positive 400, then real water starts adding the concentrate, correct?
Yes,
And after it adds the concentrate, it takes a sample of the mixed water, and it tests the ORP of the sample with the MW500, correct?
yes,
Now this was done, we've looked at the meter and the probe by turning it on and putting the probe in and into the sample of water, right?
yes,
Then the numbers on the meter, they start to tick down toward the negative range, right?
yes,
After the numbers temporarily stop moving down, real water would check the number on the MW500 ORT meter, correct?
correct.
If the meter didn't show a low enough number to reach the target negative ORP of negative 225 to 300, then the procedure was to add more concentrate until the MW500 showed a negative enough number, correct?
Yes,
According to Milwaukee and Hanna, the MW500 reads positive ORP right out of the box, correct?
yes,
For negative readings, the MW500 must be properly oxidized, true?
not according to some.
Let me stop you there. Your Honor, if we could approach.
We're gonna be done before 5.
Yes, I think so, for sure. For sure, 100% sure.
You can say so, I'm on your side.
I'm gonna be done.
All right. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to take a quick break, but we're gonna be done before 5. Anyway, you're admonished not to converse amongst yourselves with anyone else in the subject committee of this trial, or to read, watch, listen to the report, or comment or trial by any persons connected with this case, or by any medium of information, including without limitations, newspaper, television, radio, social media. You're a member of the prohibition. Last but not least, you have to formally express any opinion on any subject connected with this trial that will cause the promise in this case. When you're ready, we're ready.
All rise to the court adjourned. Here is clear, please step down.
Okay.
That was a marathon.
Anyway, a couple of things I just want to make sure I'm clear on. I'm looking at each question and I go back. And I guess we have one from Ms. Cuthbert, doing number 9. In your opinion, how was hydrogen created in the process used by real water? We can't say that,
So that's about Dr. Najim, and he was the electrolysis progress, and I said, is that a possibility? He said, yes.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, this actually goes a little deeper than that because they would actually have to do testing to determine how it was.
We can't say person testing, it would be hypothetical or theory, just like Dr. Najim said, because he didn't do testing either. So
steer away from it.
That's
So,
kind of how I'm looking at it.
yeah, there's no testing, so it could be problematic
Yeah,
unless he said there's no testing.
I don't want to open the door up on that issue.
Well, there's been doors open, so we'll figure
No,
out.
no, this is a different issue.
I understand.
That's a different issue. That's a
Okay.
true question. And the next one is it possible that there are other elements such as carbon dioxide or anything else to raise the ORP readings?
Other elements? I don't have a problem with that one because you could just list off elements that would list, what could have been available there.
You think about the question, is it possible?
That's pretty.
Yeah, I mean, what's your,
I think it kind of calls for speculation, we should steer clear of that one too. It's just not an issue in the case.
But it is for that juror.
It is, but it's not an issue to the case. Real Water has admitted and accepted liability. And doesn't really, if there's an alternate explanation, maybe it's interesting, but it doesn't apply to any issue before the court at this point.
So on relevancy grant, right? Is that what you're saying?
And it's speculation.
Well, I think you would know what would be.
You would have to be there in the factory while they're making the product to give an informed answer, or at least some educated answer, maybe not informed.
and in that respect, I agree with you, Mr. Odou. I can't argue it with you, but she's looking here, says, is it possible? Anything's possible.
Yeah.
And that's right. Okay, now let's go back to, and can we have readbacks? Because I want to know exactly what the question was.
I can tell you the question.
Let's find out if we don't get a read.
I don't even know if we can do readbacks.
Very
Can
good.
we?
We can, but I have to stop.
Okay. So you have your question written down. We'll first hear what he has to say, and if everyone agrees or disagrees.
I don't think the jury picked up on the answer, but go ahead with the question.
Oh.
I think you stopped him.
I did stop him because he was about to say
Well,
not
let's go
according
to
to
the question.
testing was for negative readings, the MW 500 must be properly oxidized, correct?
And it wasn't about testing, right? You didn't say the word testing in that
No, he
question.
didn't say that.
No, but he was gonna answer.
You're
Just left it
assuming.
open.
He said the word testing before he was stopped.
He said, not according to my testing.
That's exactly what he said.
And if this witness was informed that his
I did.
testing was excluded, why did he say, I did testing in this case? I did testing in this case.
Well, that's another issue. So, and Ms. Odou, that's your recollection as far as.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said.
I agree on that particular question. The other question is, have you ever done any negative ORP readings? This witness can't perjure himself by saying, no, I never had, when in fact he has. That was what the testing that he conducted. That would be a perjury.
But we only have one pending question that was the issue, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't bring it up. I didn't want to draw attention to it. I didn't make it an issue. He did bring it up
We didn't
twice.
Yeah.
But this is different because now he's gonna say, based on my testing, it doesn't need to be oxidized. That's what he was just gonna say.
Well, all I can say is this, we're gonna move on from that. We're not gonna underline it.
Is the door open for me to talk about his testing of the ORP for negative readings?
No.
Okay?
I don't think that opens the door up at all. Because once again, what was the question?
Has he ever done any?
No,
No,
No, that's not, before this, Your Honor, earlier in
we moved on
He
from
take
that.
a negative or reading right out of his.
Yeah.
No, except
And I
for,
didn't draw attention to it because I didn't know what the judge was gonna do.
We moved on from that.
Okay, all right, I got it.
We moved on from that.
there's no opening the door to this testing. It was excluded because it's not substantially similar. It's not, I can ask him questions without him bringing up testing in
Well, I
response.
understand that, but that's why we're moving on from
We don't
that.
ask the question.
We got that? That's why we're doing what we're doing.
Your Honor, we will,
So how much, I'll come right back to you. How much more do you have, sir?
let me tell you,
I can try
he has a hard stop at 4:30, which is in 6-8 minutes. And he can be back here on Monday. And we have another video to play, which means we're gonna have to do that on Monday as well.
So there's 2 videos.
Oh, 2 videos, I'm sorry. What?
I'll just wrap it up.
we gotta bring it back.
Well, I can have to redirect. I've only got a couple, what if there's a half hour?
that went an hour on your direct, but witness you said would take an hour.
I need to ask him the questions, and I don't want to be in trouble for not asking the questions. To have all the opinions to be given today been to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty.
You'll leave you time for that.
Don't worry, I will. I mean, I have it written down. You haven't asked that question.
And I need to, Your Honor. You know I have asked that question.
I'm gonna let you ask that question. I have it written down. I remember I had a case, I won't mention the lawyer. I permitted the witness to fly back in to answer that question.
It's nice of you to do.
Thank you, I apologize.
No, that's okay. I'm gonna let you ask that question. Tori, I knew that had to be asked. I'm gonna let you ask that question before the race. So that had to come back.
We gotta usually wait until we're redirected.
Yeah, no, that's okay, but I wouldn't wait for anything, because what if there was no redirect? What if there's no cross?
We'll cut it down to 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
I would have,
Okay. And I'll ask that
said no
question.
questions.
All right, if you'll get back on, I think we can get this done in 5 minutes.
Okay, let's get, because I want to be done right now, if possible.
All right, 2 more
We're going to
videos.
be done too, Your Honor.
Your Honor, in that regard, so we don't have to stop, can I raise the one issue with one of the video depositions that we need you to make a decision on?
Okay, can we do that after we get rid of this,
After
after we
we
release the jury? Can we do that after we release the jury?
We're gonna
Oh, we're not gonna finish today?
How long is the deposition?
This one's 15 minutes.
What's the other one?
18.
No, we're not gonna get that done today.
Okay,
And we
thank
can
you.
finish and play the 18 and then we can address your issue.
Say again?
We can finish, Dr. Babcock, play the 18 on video, you have the 15 left.
Okay.
Will you take that speeding ticket we get for taking him to the airport?
Yes, absolutely. And you know, we're gonna, let's go up to the
Yeah.
And we have to run to the ladies' room, please do. This is an endurance test. And last but not least, so we'll finish up with this witness,
Yes.
and then we'll, how long is the video again, Mr.
Oh,
Robbins?
he has one video in front of mine.
Okay, all right, well,
So about 35 minutes in total.
all I can say is this.
Closings on Monday.
Yeah, if we have to show 15 minutes before closing, so be it.
That's fine with me, Your Honor.
Yeah, I mean, it's, because I don't want the jury, you know where I'm going, right?
I do, Your Honor, and I agree with you, but please say it on the record, I don't want to cut you. I was just nodding my head and saying, yep, I know exactly. Yes.
Just put it on a flash drive and send it out.
You guys want to take 5, use the restrooms, come back.
Thank you.
How about taking 3?
3.
33.
3 minutes, ready to go.
2.5, you're already running late.
You can get the driver ready too.
Ryan will be down there to get her done.
It's the,
We are back on the record.
Okay, thanks. We still have jury instruction to finalize.
we were just talking about that.
Talking about it, that's true.
I think we're pretty close on both, actually.
Until I have them in hand, printed.
Oh, we all
Sites and no sites.
We all do.
It's at Hanna Instruments, Inc.
Here's my
Would
point.
you please do that for me?
Monday. What time do we do
Please.
the jury?
I would say 10, we have some, or do you think it's gonna take longer for the other issues?
Realistically, guys, what time do we bring the jury back on Monday?
You're trying to prevent them from having to wait, I was thinking at 30.
We do it at 10:30, we won't be ready for the.
I know we won't be ready at 10, that's what
Yeah.
Mr. Odou
I just want to hear
said.
everybody's input. Mr. Parker says 10:30.
Yeah, I just don't see how we'll be ready for the jury at 10.
Mr.
Yeah, I
Pepperman.
I think we can be ready by 10 if we come at 9:15 or 9.
You're on.
Yes.
All rise to the jury.
Mr. Rasmussen, what time are you?
Please be seated.
Party stipulation for presence of the jury.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be out of here before 12. You may proceed.
Thank you, Eli. Dr. Babcock, you said that the MW500 could indirectly measure hydrazine. What did you mean by that?
Well, it can detect a change in the ORP, but it won't, there's no way that it can tell what's causing that change, whether it's hydrazine or one of the thousands of other substances that can be dissolved in water that can change the ORP towards the negative.
You also discussed some instruments that are used when you want to detect hydrazine or these other potential contaminants in water. I believe you said GCMS with mass spectrometry and LCMS with mass spectrometry. Is that correct?
Yes.
So if real water, when they're introducing their product to the market, they could have sent samples of the product to a lab to perform testing with one of these GCMS or LCMS with mass spectrometry.
Yes.
Do you know how much that would have cost?
They're usually, when I've had it done, we have one in our lab, GCMS, not an LCMS, but when I've had water tested by a test, like a specific water testing lab, I think it's $100 or $200 a test.
And is that similar to what your case did with the retail bottle testing?
Yes.
So for $100 or $200, when Real Water was first about to introduce their product to the market, they could have sent it out for testing and learned if hydrazine or any number of contaminants were in their product, correct?
Yes.
And if they had been receiving complaints of illnesses or liver injuries or chemical smells or fishy smells, at any time they could have just sent a sample to a lab to run these types of tests for less than $200.
Correct.
Thank you, Dr. Babcock. Those are all the questions I have.
Thank you, Mr. Governor.
Scott, I'll be brief.
Oh, you're right, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's my mistake.
It'll be quick. Hopefully painless. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Babcock, just a couple of questions. In sufficient quantities, what does hydrazine smell like?
It has kind of a fishy ammonia type odor.
Did you see any of the complaints that actually indicated that this water smelled fishy?
I didn't see any myself. I don't think I read all of them, but
Mr. Rasmussen didn't provide you with it?
I did receive, I know some of the complaints, but I don't recall. I don't think I reviewed them in great detail.
All right. And in water, what does it look like? In sufficient quantities, of course.
You really can't see it at all. It dissolves in water.
Does it have an oily appearance at all, if there's enough of it?
Well, hydrazine and water are what's called miscible, so they mix together in almost any quantity. There probably is some point where if you had 99% hydrazine and 1% water, it would look different, but I don't know at which stage it would flip over from mixing completely with the water where you couldn't tell it was there versus something that was visually apparent.
In sufficient quantities, is there a taste to it?
Oh, I'm sure there is.
And what would that taste be?
It would probably pick up some of the odor since taste is a lot related to your smell. So it would probably have a fishy taste, like if you used ammonia for cleaning, you'd probably smell a little bit of that.
And if we actually showed complaints to this jury earlier in this case, about 2 weeks ago, that said fishy, oily ammonia, that would all be consistent with hydrazine.
It could be.
And just to finish up, you're not a warnings expert, are you?
No, sir.
You don't know if the adequacy of the warnings on that box are appropriate or not appropriate.
Just from my experience using scientific instruments, but that's not my expertise on warnings.
And that's why you're not providing any warnings opinions, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
No question, John.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rasmussen? sir.
No, it's Rob.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. No questions from the board.
All that.
Sit down.
No, it's not like I don't need to work out. Everyone knows that. And tease me incessantly about I need to work out. Have all of your opinions that you have given today to this jury, has that been done to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty in the field of chemistry or any other science area for which you have testified today, sir?
Yes.
That's all I've got.
Thank you, sir.
Ron Daggett.
And I will be released.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm not asking.
Oh, there is some questions.
Yeah, no, oh, we talked about this, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right? Am I asking it? I didn't think so.
I thought we were.
No, I said no.
Oh,
All right. And ladies and gentlemen, there were good questions, but they're not, for evidentiary reasons, I won't ask them. Okay, Doctor, you are released.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, and we have,
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
Okay, so down the bottom.
We have the 18 video.
Okay.
Yeah, you can write down.
All right.
and we have an 18-minute video.
We have an 18-minute video. Yours is 30. This is 16. We can take it out of order if that's okay, Your Honor. We'll do the 16.
Yeah, it's a question about it.
We'll do this.
Oh, we have questions, so the answers, we can.
All right. I understand, we're not going beyond 5 o'clock. All right.
Then should we put part of the video?
I prefer not to break it up.
Okay. And that's your video, Mr. Rob?
Excuse me?
That's your video?
One of them is, but I don't think you.
I understand. I think what we're gonna do, it's 20 minutes to 5, right?
On Friday.
On a Friday. And I just wanna make sure that the record's clear as far as evidence is concerned. We only have those 2 videos, is that correct?
Yes,
That's
Your Honor.
it.
Yes, Your Honor.
And so from an evidentiary perspective, we have 2 videos, and then the defense will be finished with their case in chief. One is 18 minutes, and the other is what, 30 minutes? That's it. And so I'm thinking, counsel, in light of that, what do you think Monday?
Judge, it would be nice to finish the arguments on Monday.
Right, absolutely.
I would think maybe 10 o'clock.
I know Mr. Parker thinks 10:30.
And I'll defer to the group, Your Honor.
10:30?
Yeah, we don't like to keep the jury waiting. I'm gonna say 10:30, just in case.
We could come in earlier. We could come in earlier.
Yeah, we can come in earlier.
And then we could stick with 10.
Hook to the court.
I like 10:30 for the jury, because I have a feeling we might be here for a while.
Well, no, I'll ask them what they.
Okay. I thought it was 10:30.
We can come in early. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll make it real simple for you. The choice is 10 or 10:30. And I'm not really, we can always work around you. What do you want?
10:30.
10:30. And you know what? Ladies and gentlemen, just a couple of things before we go. I just want you to enjoy your week, and I appreciate you, your attentiveness and your willingness to come down every day and serve. And so remember this, you're admonished not to converse amongst yourselves with anyone else on the subject of this trial, or to read, watch, or listen to a report of it, or a commentary on the trial, any persons connected with this case, or by any medium of information, including without limitations. Remember, no mass media, no newspapers, no television, no radio, no social media, or to form express any opinion on any subject matters of the trial until the cause is finally submitted to you.
10:30, all rise for the court to adjourn. Jury is clear, please be seated. Thank you.
Anything else? Solve the issue of the video.
Maybe we can do.
Oh, okay.
And before we do that, Your Honor, there's a copy of the instructions that have been shot down already. May I give these to the court? These are proposed jury instructions. You've already ruled on all these. I just want to make sure we have.
Oh, no, you have to tender, make sure you attach them as copies if they've been rejected under the law and required to.
Yes, that's fine.
You understand?
And we had been asked to do one for implied warranty, but before we got down here today, Your Honor seems to have made that ruling.
Yes.
I just want to make the record. And then the other issue, Your Honor, is
We'll mark this as defense tendered and rejected.
that's fine.
Yeah, sure. Because it has to be done now.
Yeah.
Have you looked at them? Do you know what?
I just gave them. They've already been argued. The only new one's the stuff on implied warranty, which.
And what we'll do, and I'll make sure the record's clear, because it is late in the day. If we need any discussion on those proposed instructions outside of what we've done today, we can do it early.
I think we had plenty of discussion on these exact.
I understand, but just in case.
I'm not re-arguing them.
I understand.
So the last issue was on Anthony Brown's deposition. Maybe we can just pull it up since Jerry's gone. Yeah, page 100, line 2.
So do you want to switch me over?
Yeah. So I just want to make a record on this, Your Honor. This is, and for the record, it is.
Mr. Akins told me the pump was not functional.
Did Mr. Akins specifically tell you that he thought the pump was what caused that?
We just play it, or?
I mean, whatever is easiest for me to do to digest.
Play it. Just play it. Yeah. Play it? Yeah, just play it. So listen, we're gonna play one.
Did Mr. Akins?
Well, for the record, it's 100, page 100, line 2, all the way through to page 102, line 6.
All right.
Did Mr. Akins specifically tell you that he thought the pump was what caused a bad batch of water?
Mr. Akins told me the pump was not functional.
On the 3 days you've indicated, October 14th, 15th, 16th, correct?
I don't know if October 14th, 15th, 16th were the exact days,
Close to that time frame.
but in that time frame, yes.
And Mr. Akins did not say to you that he had added too much concentrate. Is that correct?
He did inform me he had more concentrate.
Okay. At what point in time?
End of October, maybe early November.
Okay. And was that the same conversation about the pump or a different conversation?
Different conversation.
Okay. So there were 2 things here. There was the pump conversation and the additional concentrate conversation.
Correct.
Why were we having a conversation about him adding additional concentrate?
Because I had started an internal investigation on why everybody was why the complaints are happening.
Okay. And it was your conclusion that he had added additional concentrate?
It was my thought process based off what the customers were saying and my knowledge of the water, that it had something to do with concentrate, yes.
So it was your determination that there was excess concentrate in the water, and that's what caused the customers to get sick? Is that correct?
I do believe that that had a big part of what the issue was.
Okay.
Yes.
So it really was nothing to do with the pump putting too much, what was it, potassium hydroxide in there?
I wouldn't say that, no. The pump could have definitely had something to do with it if it was a weak pump, yes.
So the pump was still not working properly at the end of October and early November?
No, we got it fixed then at that point in time. But at the time when the pump was acting up, it definitely could have been a cause, yes.
Okay.
And what's the drug, I mean, what's the chemical again?